It's just different leagues.
Welcome back to another episode of the Raising the Trophy podcast. I'm your host, Tyler. Last weekend, we had a lot of great games, and it was extremely difficult to rank some of these teams, so I'm really excited to show you what I came up with. For rankings, I have been trying my best to reset my thought process in the rankings and not just say, oh, this team lost, I'll drop them 6 spots. So I have a lot of teams that fell out of the rankings this week. I have 5 teams that fell out. Also, I am including the USF versus North Texas game that just ended. USF putting up a 60-burger on previously undefeated North Texas on the road is ridiculous. The amount of turnovers in that game really influenced the final score because it was a 21-21 game at halftime. But it was an excellent game to watch. I actually was able to tune into it tonight. So let's go ahead and get into these rankings.
You got barbecue back there!
It's just different leagues.
So starting here, before we get into my top 25, the 5 teams that I dropped out were Texas, that should be self-explanatory, Iowa State, that should also be self-explanatory, Utah won, but I've looked at their resume and it's really not that impressive. I have them as my first team out. Auburn, who I was super high on and my thought process has changed a little bit, and Notre Dame. Notre Dame I had at 25, and the reason I dropped them even though they beat Boise State is Boise State hung around as long as I thought they were going to, and that win looked nowhere near as impressive as South Florida's did over Boise State. So that's why I dropped them out. Now, starting with our first new team, Nebraska. Now, I've been very low on Nebraska. They weren't even in my first 5 out last week, but I've re-looked at their resume, and the close loss to Michigan and a win over Cincinnati, those are 2 very good results, so I have them in. Now, my only 2 lost teams that I have are Florida State and Mississippi State. Now, I didn't know who to put above who, but Florida State looked awful for the first 3 quarters against Miami, and the final score looked a little bit closer than the game was. I know it was 28-22, but that was a 28-3 game. Florida State did have a chance, but I'm putting Mississippi State above them because Florida State's loss to Virginia is worse than both of Mississippi State's losses. An overtime loss to Tennessee, who is 5 spots higher than Virginia, and a loss to A&M. Now, they did get shut down in the A&M game, but honestly, their game was very similar to Florida State's against Miami. So I'm leaving Mississippi State above Florida State. Now, Memphis could be higher. They are the only bowl-eligible team in the country, so clap it up for Memphis. But their resume doesn't really speak to me. Arkansas was a great win for them, but Arkansas is also in purgatory right now. I mean, when is Arkansas not in purgatory? Salute to Sam Pittman. But yeah, I've got Memphis at 22. I think that's a good spot for them right now. I can't wait for Memphis, South Florida later in the year. That's going to be a great game. Now, Illinois, I've risen up a little bit. I don't know if 21 is the right spot for them, but I'm comfortable with them being in this 21 to 25 range. That loss to Indiana still looks really ugly, but they have rebounded very nicely. They beat USC. They've beaten Duke. I mean, they have good wins. And I think that Duke win is going to be a lot more valuable later in the season than I think people think it will be now. I think Duke could finish the year ranked, so that's a pretty valuable win to have. And they throttled them 45-19. Now, Cincinnati jumps up from unranked to number 20. And the reason for this is I'm valuing their wins a lot. Kansas tested Missouri. I have Missouri pretty high, as you can see. They also beat Iowa State, who I had ranked last week. Very good win, and they were controlling that game for the majority of it. Now, I have them below Michigan because Michigan beat Nebraska and Cincinnati lost to Nebraska, both by 3. Cincinnati did lose on the final play of the game. They had a chance to take the lead, but it was not meant to be. But Cincinnati's still a great team. I have them at 20. Michigan, I already explained. I could have them higher, but they got dominated by OU. And that's why I have South Florida above them. South Florida, I wasn't really sure what to do with them. I had them at 18 before their game tonight, and even after the North Texas game, I can't really justify moving them up. They got blasted by Miami. They're going to have opportunities to build their resume, but they also kind of hope that other teams lose around them for them to rise in my rankings. Remember, I had them up at number 6 before the Miami game. So I am very high on South Florida, so don't be shocked if they move up. Now, Virginia, dude, the cardiac Cavs are at it again. Back-to-back overtime wins, this time over a pretty decent Louisville team who was previously undefeated. I do have them below Georgia Tech, even though Virginia's resume is skies better, solely because Virginia lost to NC State And I could see NC State going anywhere from 5-7 to 7-5, and really that's not a great record. So losing to a barely decent ACC team is not great for your resume. Georgia Tech, I've consistently been either leaving in the same spot or dropping. Their resume just doesn't look very good anymore. And the Wake Forest game was extremely concerning. So great that they won that game. I'm leaving them here. They need to not lose to Virginia Tech. Now, LSU, I've slowly been rising. I think after the Ole Miss game, I had them at 19. I've got them at 15 now. I do have them above Georgia Tech for the resume. Now, honestly, all of LSU's opponents, their resumes have not looked great, but Florida winning against Texas, which I still laugh at, is a reason I bumped LSU up. But honestly, for a while, I was joking that Louisiana Tech was LSU's best win. I expected Louisiana Tech to win Conference USA. I still do, but they got blasted by Kennesaw State. So definitely not their best win anymore. Their best win is definitely Florida. Now, Arizona State, I'm really high on. Arizona State, they had a close loss to Mississippi State. They really blew that one. Baylor is in my first 5 out, and TCU was ranked for me for a while, and they won both of those games. So 2 very valuable wins. I think I have them a little high, but they have better resumes than pretty much everyone below them, besides maybe Virginia. Now, Vanderbilt, unfortunately, lost, and I hate it so much. I know everyone in the SEC was crying when Vanderbilt lost. They kept it competitive, but Diego Pavia had some untimely turnovers that I know he regrets. So I do have them below Tennessee and Missouri. A little group of 3 SEC teams right there. I'm still giving Tennessee a lot of credit for their game against Georgia. Honestly, the loss doesn't look as good now that Georgia lost to Bama, but they should have won that game, and I'm giving them a little bit of credit because outside of that, their resume doesn't look as good after Mississippi State lost again. Now, Missouri. Missouri has been slowly rising throughout the year. They've got wins over South Carolina. They've got wins over Kansas. I am still not sold on Missouri, but we're going to talk about Missouri later because we're going to have to talk about one of the games of the week against a specific red team in the top 10. It is not Georgia or Texas Tech, though. I do have Texas Tech above Georgia. They've got wins over, like I said, Utah, and then previously unbeaten Houston, who they destroyed. So, and that game was on the road. So I like Texas Tech over Georgia. I think that's fair. Alabama at 8. The loss to Florida State definitely hurts. They got smashed by Florida State. It honestly, I think some Alabama fans would say it's the best thing that could have happened to this team. Ty Simpson looks like the Heisman winner. And if I was going to pick a Heisman right now, I'd say it definitely could be him. So I'm pretty happy with Alabama at 8. They've got wins over number 10 Georgia, number 13 Vanderbilt for me. Vanderbilt convincingly, Georgia not so convincingly, but on the road, and that's very valuable. Now, Oregon I dropped from number 3 to 7, and that's mainly because of what Penn State did. But I went back and looked at their resume. I don't really know what their best win is. I mean, maybe 69-3 over Oklahoma State, sure. Super dominant, super impressive. But Oregon State's 0-6. Montana State's an FCS team. Honestly, I'm looking at Oregon right now, and their resume is honestly being hurt by the Penn State game because I'm very glad I was right about Penn State by not having them ranked last week because they embarrassed themselves against UCLA. So I have Indiana actually above Oregon. And that is our game of the week, Indiana versus Oregon. Now, do I think Indiana's a better team than Oregon? No. But these are rankings, not power ratings. So I have Indiana above Oregon because their resume speaks to me more. They have a 53-point win over number 21 Illinois, and they beat Iowa on the road. Those are 2 very valuable wins to me. And I did move Oklahoma up to number 5 and Ole Miss to 4 because I originally had Oregon at 3, so I moved these teams up. Oklahoma, they've got a win over Michigan and a win over Auburn. They're still in my first 5 out, but they're clinging on to dear life. I do value their win over Baylor a lot because I'm very high on Baylor. But I don't anticipate Auburn doing great this season. They honestly, after the last few losses, they look like either a 6-6 team or an 8-4 team because their defense is keeping them in games, but Jackson Arnold needs to get it together. OU, I think they beat Texas even with Michael Hawkins in, so I've got Oklahoma at 5. They should stay there. Ole Miss at 4. Ole Miss is interesting because I almost put them above Ohio State. They've got a win over number 15 LSU. They've got a dominant win over Tulane. But I can't justify dropping the national champion any lower than I have dropped them because, as you see, I put Texas A&M over them, and I'm going to explain why. So Washington and Texas. Honestly, if I was going to sit here right now, what's the better win? It's Washington. And that speaks to why I've been dropping Ohio State, because Texas is embarrassing themselves right now. So I value Texas A&M's wins over number 23 Mississippi State, Notre Dame, who's in my first 5 out, and Auburn, who's in my first 5 out. And I think that they are very high, and I think that they're overrated. I do. And it's not because I'm an LSU fan, but their resume just speaks to me a little bit more. You could argue that Ole Miss could be number 2. You could argue that Oklahoma could be number 2. But the big thing is A&M has 3 wins that I like, and Ole Miss and OU only have 2. But it pales in comparison to the 4 that Miami has. Miami has wins over number 18 South Florida, number 24 Florida State, first 5 out Notre Dame, and Florida. And all of them were convincing, including Florida State. I know the Notre Dame game was a little close, but Notre Dame played A&M close as well. I'm still confident that Miami is the best team in the country, and if we're going off of pure resume, I like this top 5, but you can switch around Ohio State. Honestly, you can switch around any of the teams in 2 through 5 just solely because of their resumes. I'd argue that I'm fine keeping Oklahoma at 5, but you can swap around A&M, Ohio State, and Ole Miss if you'd like. But none of them even touch Miami right now.
You got barbecue back there?
It's just different leagues.
All right, let's get into games of the week because this is a jam-packed weekend. Now, we've already talked about North Texas and South Florida. Now, I picked South Florida to win this game. They won 63-36. Honestly, I can't really talk about it that much. It was a close game, and then I turned the game on, and it wasn't a close game. So I don't really know what to say. I mean, Byron Brown is an amazing quarterback. He struggled a little bit against Miami, but in every other game, he's looked sharp. And I'm just still impressed with South Florida. That South Florida-Memphis game is going to be really good, and I think that's going to be the deciding game in the Group of 5 playoff race, because Memphis could be undefeated going into that game. So after that, I am 18 for 29 on picks, and honestly, that is a lot better than I thought I'd be. That is above 60%, so hopefully we keep the ball rolling with these next 6. Now, my game of the week is number 6 Indiana traveling on the road to number 7 Oregon in Eugene. Honestly, I have Oregon winning, and I have them winning by 7 or 10. I think a lot of people will tell you that Oregon is going to win by 7 or 10. My big thing is I think Indiana keeps the game close until the fourth quarter. I could even see them being up in the fourth quarter. Indiana is a much better football team than they were last season, and that's saying a lot because they made the playoffs last season. Fernando Mendoza is legit. He's a Heisman caliber quarterback. My Heisman top 3 right now is probably Mendoza, Mateer, and Simpson. You can swap them around in any order you'd like. Indiana hasn't really had to play as much tough competition with Cignetti at head coach as, let's say, James Franklin has at Penn State. They're not going to be Penn State with these top 10 games, but they're not ready to beat Oregon yet. If Indiana does win this game, they're probably number 2 for me next week, because that would be an amazing win. Now let's get into number 8 Alabama going on the road to number 11 Missouri. Missouri is winning this game. I thought Vanderbilt was going to win, but my whole philosophy was Alabama's going to beat Georgia, and then they're going to lose a random game. This isn't really so random. Missouri can pressure the quarterback, and that's going to be the difference in this game. I've got Missouri winning, I'd say by 3. They could win by a touchdown. I have them winning by 3. I think it's going to be really close, but defense will win this game for Missouri. Now we've got number 3 Ohio State traveling on the road to number 21 Illinois. As a reminder, I'm using my rankings when I'm saying the numbers in front of the teams. So a lot of people are saying this is upset alert for Ohio State. I don't see it. I think the game will be closer than people would like to admit, but it's not an upset. I'm picking Ohio State here. I don't think that Illinois can upset them, but if Luke Altmaier throws for 500 yards, maybe we'll be sitting right here next weekend talking about how Ohio State are frauds because they don't really have a single good win other than Washington. Yeah, I don't know. If Illinois wins, it's really going to shake up these rankings, and if you really go back and look at that top 25, a lot of us are saying WTF right now because this season has been bonkers. Now, Arizona State going on the road to Utah. I know I have Arizona State at 14. That doesn't mean I don't think Utah's going to win this game. I think Utah wins. I think Utah covers. I am very high on Utah still. They thumped West Virginia, and West Virginia played AP poll ranked number 18 BYU pretty close the other day. So, I don't know. I'm not ready to say Arizona State is the second best team in the Big 12 yet. I have them ranked as the second best team in the Big 12. I think Utah's got something to say about that, so I think Utah wins this weekend. Now we've got the Red River Shootout, Oklahoma going on the road against Texas. Now, originally, before the Florida game, I was saying that if Michael Hawkins Jr. played, I was going to take Texas. I am no longer taking Texas because Arch Manning really struggled against Florida's defense. That was my key last week. I said that I really wanted to see Arch Manning against Florida's defense. He failed. And Oklahoma also has a really good defense. So I think this game is going to be like really low scoring. I wouldn't be shocked if it's 17-13. I don't really know how Michael Hawkins is going to perform. I know they say John Mateer is questionable. I know he's trying to push himself to get back. Even if he does come back, I mean, could we see a 2-quarterback system? Is he going to be 100%? So honestly, I think the two are pretty even. I know Mateer is a Heisman-level quarterback, and Michael Hawkins really struggled last season against Texas. But I'm going to say 17-13, maybe 20-17, 24-20. Something in that range for the Red River Shootout. It's not going to be a shootout. It's going to be a defensive game. I'm taking Oklahoma on the road. And finally, this is upset alert of the week. Florida versus Texas A&M. Now, a lot of people aren't going to give Florida a chance in this game. I am not one of those people. I think Florida is going to be in this game from start to finish. This is also going to be a very low-scoring defensive game because I'm not sold on either of these offenses. Marcel Reed is a good quarterback. He's not a great one. DJ Lagway is a good quarterback. He's definitely not a great one after throwing 5 picks against the Tigers. Go Tigers. So I think that this is going to be like a 17-15 game. We might see a safety. We might see a bunch of fumbles. There's going to be, I think both Reed and Lagway turn the ball over twice. It's going to be a weird game. It's going to be a weird game. I think a lot of A&M fans, I know battered Aggie syndrome is a big thing. I don't think you lose this game, but I think it's really going to make you clench your butt cheeks. Oh my God, why did I say that? Now, it would not be a weekend podcast if I did not talk about the absolute laughable failures of the University of Texas at Austin and the University of Penn State. My God, let's talk about Texas first. I'm not surprised by this. I'm really just not surprised whatsoever. But it is still really funny. And Texas and Arch Manning have to do a lot of soul searching right now. They need to figure things out. And I really, honestly, I hope for Arch Manning he's able to turn it around. I like Arch Manning. I think that he was overhyped, but I don't think he's a bad quarterback. But like I said at the beginning of the season in some of the early podcasts, I know Texas fans would rather have Quinn Ewers right now. And I know that they're really, really looking back on all the things they said about Quinn Ewers, and they're apologizing profusely. Now, Penn State. Now, I live in an apartment complex, and it is 12:48 a.m. on Saturday, and I still have to edit this, so I would be laughing really, really hard right now, but I don't really want to piss off my upstairs and downstairs neighbors, so ha ha ha, Penn State loses, very funny. I cannot believe that they lost that game. I'm still in disbelief, but James Franklin, the one thing that he did at Penn State is he didn't lose to the bad teams. His seat just got really hot. I don't think he gets fired. I really don't. But Penn State fans are loud, and they're going to be loud about this because they're not going to settle for this mediocrity. They want a national championship contender, and they're not getting it right now. So they're going to be loud. I feel bad for James Franklin. I don't think he's a bad coach. I said last week I don't think he's a bad coach. This is a really bad loss. I would argue this is the worst loss of the Franklin era. But that's going to do it for this episode. I know I rambled a little bit more in this one, so hope you guys can bear with me on that, but it is super duper late. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've really appreciated the support on these episodes, and I'm really excited to keep it going because this is the most bonkers season of college football that I've ever watched. I feel like I say that every year, but I mean, look at the top 25 that I put in the beginning of the video. This is ridiculous. It's been a ridiculous season, and I'm excited to see where we go from here. So that's all for me, and as always, Go Tigers.
You got barbecue back there.
It's just different leagues.